All right, guys, we're here with Kent McMillen. He's running for U.S. Senate as a Libertarian. Kent, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Aaron. Good to be here.
What inspired you to run for U.S. Senate?
Well, I'd go back to the Libertarian Party of Illinois convention earlier in the year. I've been with the Libertarian Party for a while, and obviously we are a political party by definition, but unfortunately we haven't had enough contested races.
Okay, so some of that had to do with building credibility in the party.
Right, and I was hoping to inspire people for the future. If I can run for office, anybody can. So you don't need to be a Philadelphia lawyer or a PhD in economics. You just need to be willing to get out and shake some hands, listen to some folks, and be willing to serve if elected. So I was hoping to inspire a new generation of libertarians.
Obviously, you face challengers from the Republican side and the Democrat side. I believe there's also a Green Party candidate, as well as I don't know if there are other write-ins available or other independents at this time. I haven't researched it. Obviously, my vote is going to go to you. I'm going to support you. What major point would you say that separates you from your opponents?
I want to make the government smaller, and I'm campaigning on issues to get to that result, such as looking at the various departments and agencies of the federal government, taking a look, do we need to spend all this money and have all these jobs? So I want to make the government smaller. I'm also talking about eliminating the drug war and moving the emphasis from incarceration to treatment.
What would you say to voters, like say I'm just an average GOP voter and I want to vote for Kirk because I want the GOP to maintain the majority in the Senate?
Ask them the reason why that is so important. I mean, to me it makes it sound like it's a team game. So we have to have more players on the Republican side than on the Democratic side, where it should be you're doing public service for the country, and it shouldn't really depend on what party you're in. That's the problem I have with elected party politics in general, is you're basically running on a team concept, which is like us versus them, and the service for the country kind of falls by the wayside. And I think that also kind of folds into the whole wasted vote syndrome. Libertarian doesn't have a chance of winning, so I'm not going to vote for him. But what are you getting for your non-wasted vote? You're getting nearly $20 trillion in debt, endless wars, Social Security and Medicare program, which is a total mess, and an expanded federal government. To me, that's a wasted vote. I think what you want to do is think outside of the box and look at a new party and give them a chance. If someone wants to actually make the government smaller and put more money in your pocket, that you should be thinking differently and not traditionally.
Okay, so you kind of hit on the endless wars and military and things like that. One prominent Republican has been going around saying that we need to rebuild the military.
Well, we spend nearly $600 billion a year on the military, and quite a bit more than a number of countries combined. The next 4 or 5 in military spending. So if there's something wrong with the military, then we're obviously wasting a lot of money. I don't see anything wrong with the military. I would like to see anyone, just at a generic level, try to mess with us and see how good our military is. We have the best military in the history of this world, and there's nothing wrong with our military. Someone that says something like that is just trying to appeal to a certain voter who thinks, by virtue of a party or a candidate not wanting to be interventionists, thinking that means weakness. That's not the case. Just because we don't want to go in every country does not make us weak. If somebody comes to the shores of this country, we're going to act, and we're going to act with a huge amount of force. If one of our allies gets threatened, we're going to be at that ally's side. We have commitments to our allies. So again, it's a sop to somebody that may want to hear that. I've talked to veterans throughout this campaign. They tell me the same thing. There is nothing wrong with our military. We have the best fighting force in the history of mankind.
One thing that people are fearing this election cycle is what appears to be the inevitability of a Hillary Clinton presidency and what that will mean for gun rights. Now, looking at your opponents, and again, I'm not sure if there are write-ins or other independents, but we have a Green Party candidate, Scott Summers. I'm sure he's anti-gun without even knowing, because the Green Party is anti-gun. The Democrat, Duckworth, have to assume that she's anti-Second Amendment. The one who would normally be pro-Second Amendment is the GOP candidate, and in this case, I think Kirk is not. So if you're concerned about what Hillary Clinton is going to do to recent Supreme Court decisions in this country that have favored the right to armed self-defense, what would you have to say to that voter?
Well, then I'm your only choice. I'm the only pro-gun candidate on the ballot for Senate in Illinois, and I will oppose any federal measure that will limit the rights of gun owners. Now, I don't have a vote in the Illinois legislature, so obviously they can put in laws as they see fit. But I would go on record as opposing them. And I want to preface this by saying I personally am not a gun owner. It's just not something I'm necessarily interested in. But I'm all for responsible people owning guns for protection, for sport, for hunting, as they see fit. And the overwhelming majority of gun owners are responsible. If you take away the mess that happens in Chicago, you basically have pretty much all responsible gun owners in this state. So I would be a vote against anything a President Clinton would want to do on a federal level to limit gun owners' rights.
How would you say the media response to your campaign has been to this point?
With the exception of some smaller media outlets like Jan and Don Stover at the Owl Creek Gazette, and Greg Bishop with a studio in Springfield, and also I got some good coverage in Decatur when I was there with Claire. It's basically been non-existent, particularly the big media in Chicago. The Tribune did not even mention me in their endorsement for Congresswoman Duckworth. They did not even mention that I was on the ballot. They did not bring me in for the sit-down with Senator Kirk and Congresswoman Duckworth. Both Summers and I were shut out of that. I did do a phone interview with one of the board members earlier for about 20 minutes, but that's where it stopped. The Sun-Times, which is the other big paper in Chicago, I filled out a questionnaire and then I never heard back from them. So that's been a little disappointing. I think that's a disservice to their readers. However, I will say that a week from tonight, at around 9 p.m. on October 30th, I will be calling in to the Stephanie Trussell show on WLSAM 890 AM. So I'm expected to go on around 9:05 p.m. a week from today. And that's a 50,000 watt blowtorch. So a lot of folks will have access to that. So my hat is off to Stephanie for giving me that opportunity. I met her at one of my events and we spoke. And she mentioned me on the air a week or so later and actually said I was awesome, which was nice to hear. 11 o'clock I was ready for bed and I was listening to her show and she said, "There's this guy named Kent McMillen," and she spelled out my last name. And he was awesome, I heard him. So that was a little nice to hear before I went to bed. But considering from what I've heard from some folks that the Senate race in Illinois is somewhat of a smaller version of the presidential race where you have two people running who are not, believe it or not, are not necessarily popular among people in the state. I would think that the media would want to mention some other folks that are on the ballot. So I have got some coverage, but I would have thought since I am on the ballot and I got more signatures than the two main candidates combined, as did Scott Summers, there would have been more of a consideration for the media.
Yeah, so down in the Metro East where I live, I mean, we were disappointed when one of our local papers put out a list of candidates that are going to be on the ballot, and yourself and Scott Summers were not mentioned among the Senate candidates. We happen to know the person that personally sent your press kit to that paper, so it's not that they're just lazy.
Right.
It's not that it's not, even if they were lazy, you only have to look at the State Board of Elections website to find write-ins, independents, everybody.
Right.
And just see the list, boom, copy, paste, print. It's the easiest journalistic task you'll ever do.
And it shouldn't be their job to exclude a candidate based on what the candidate believes. I mean, a candidate is on the ballot. Even if they have extreme beliefs, the purpose of the press, or it should be, is to expose those beliefs. We've spent about $1 trillion over the last 30 years on the so-called war on drugs, which is basically, saying all drugs are illegal, and if you're caught taking a drug, you go to jail. all that's done is put people that may necessarily either are recreational drug users and they're not bothering anybody, or people that actually have a problem with drugs in jail, and you're not helping those folks. They come out of there and what are they going to do? They can't find a job. So what I'm maintaining is we eliminate the incarceration part of it. We move the emphasis to treatment. If someone's a recreational user and they're sitting in their basement, they're not bothering anybody, leave them alone. You know, if they get in their car and do something stupid, that's something different. If someone is a drug addict and he has a problem, don't put him in jail. Put him in front of a doctor or some sort of treatment center. What I believe that will do is that will bring down the level of drug usage. And by bringing down the level of drug usage, that'll bring down the cost of drugs, and the folks that are selling these things are not going to have this big monopoly, so they may just have to go out and get another job.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've heard comedian Chris Rock say, you know, drug dealers, they don't sell drugs, right? Drugs sell themselves.
Absolutely.
People want to get high. There's these people that have this chemical dependency or this desire to engage in this activity, you know, for whatever reason. And rather than treating that as a criminal problem, if we treat that as a medical problem, that's what it is. Alcoholics are told they have a disease,
Right.
Even though alcoholism doesn't meet any medical definition of a pathological condition. And they're given treatment options, and you know, everybody feels sorry for them. And I agree, people with chemical addiction, you know, we should have sympathy toward them, of course. Well, this is a medical problem that should be handled between them and their doctor.
Absolutely. You don't put someone in jail when they have a cold. So it's basically the same situation as someone that's sick.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think anyone gets up and says, hot dog, I'm a drug addict. I'm proud of it.
Mm-hmm.
They probably feel terrible about their life, but they're not strong enough physically or mentally to make that difference. And by putting them in jail, you're just making the whole thing worse. So get those folks into treatment and let them lead more productive lives. There's a big difference between someone that's taking a drug and someone that breaks into your house. And then this will allow law enforcement to focus on victims in which crimes in which there is an actual victim,
Mm-hmm.
versus a victimless crime where the only victim is yourself, and you're doing it to yourself and you're doing it to your loved ones.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now you hit on something that I think is going to be the objection that I've heard from law enforcement and also people that are interested in the drug war, and that there's crime that is sort of centered around the drug trade. And you sort of touched on earlier that decriminalizing these drugs and moving it into the medical treatment realm will defund the illicit gangs and the you know, the people that are running it, dealing it, and things like that. And I would argue that the violent aspect of it is because the profits are so high, and so someone that has a chemical addiction, now they have to deal with all these seedy characters and get into these potentially violent situations in order to get their fix. And if we ended the way we prosecute the war on drugs and treated it as a chemical addiction like what you're proposing, then they would be able to be much safer, and they wouldn't be prone to the other associated crime that goes with their along with their drug use.
Right. For instance, in Chicago, all the killings that happen primarily are due to the gangs which sell drugs. So if you eliminate, again, it'll bring down the demand for drugs, and while you bring down the demand, it'll automatically have to bring down the price. And you know, if it's not in someone's economic best interest to sell drugs, they're not going to do it. You know, you don't see anybody illicitly selling alcohol anymore, because you can go to your local liquor store and get alcohol. You no longer have to have these underground casinos, because you can just go to either your local bar, which now has slot machines, or you can go to an actual casino.
Right, and unless somebody forget the alcohol prohibition, these were very large, very powerful, violent gangs.
Absolutely. And Al Capone made more money than anyone else in this country, you know, during that period. Mm-hmm. And a libertarian told me a long time ago, I haven't seen her in a while, banning something doesn't solve the problem. And you can't have a law enforcement option for everything.
how can people find more information about you?
Okay, my website is Kent, followed by the number 4, Senate.com. So it's Kent4Senate.com, and that's also my Facebook and my Twitter is Kent4Senate. So they can find out where I'm going to be. They can see all the wonderful things I post and all the wonderful thoughts that I share on Twitter. And I am accessible. There is a phone number that they can call if they have any questions. And actually the phone now comes directly to me. So if in the middle of the day you call my campaign phone number, you'll get my cell phone number, which is in my pocket. So I'll be happy to talk to you anytime between now and Election Day.
All right, Kent, I really appreciate you joining us today.
Thank you, Aaron. It's great being with you.
Awesome. Guys, check out those websites. Get a hold of Kent. Let him know your issues. If you're viewing this and you feel that Kent has said some things that resonate with you, please share this. We got to get the word out. It's only 2 weeks till the election. And, if we don't let people know about Kent, then we're going to end up with Duckworth or Kirk, and it's going to be, in my opinion, it's going to be a disaster. I think Kirk's record speaks for itself. So check this out. Share it with your family and friends. Thanks a lot.